There are mistakes in the world of power that are never written in law books. They do not appear in constitutions. They are never mentioned in speeches about morality or justice. But they destroy leaders faster than any enemy. Not with noise, not with violence, but with tolerance. Because power rarely collapses in one dramatic moment. It erodes, slowly, piece by piece, through the things a leader allows to continue. A betrayal that goes unpunished, a lie that goes unanswered, a challenge that is ignored. Every time a leader tolerates the wrong behavior, he unknowingly writes a new rule for everyone watching. And that rule becomes simple. There are no consequences. History is full of powerful men who were not destroyed by enemies. They were destroyed by the people standing beside them, the trusted advisor, the loyal friend, a smiling ally. And the tragedy is always the same. The warning signs were there, but the leader ignored them. Machiavelli understood something most people still refuse to accept. Leadership is not only about what you build, it is about what you refuse to tolerate. Because once the wrong behavior becomes normal, the fall has already begun. Today we are exposing 5 behaviors that no leader should ever tolerate. 5 silent poisons that slowly destroy power, reputation, and trust. If you understand these, you will see people very differently. Behavior 1: disappearing during crisis. Loyalty is easy when life is comfortable, when the money flows, when the victories come, when the celebrations are loud. Everyone wants to be near success, but loyalty is never measured in comfort. It is measured in crisis. The moment things begin to collapse is when the truth appears. Watch carefully. When problems arrive, many people vanish. The ones who laughed with you, the ones who toasted your success, the ones who promised loyalty. Suddenly they become silent. No messages, no support, no presence, just absence. And absence is not neutral. It is a decision. People who disappear during your hardest moment are not confused. They are calculating. They are protecting themselves. Because they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to your power. And once that power looks unstable, they quietly step away. The worst part comes later, when you recover, when you rebuild, when success returns. Suddenly those same people reappear. With excuses. I didn't know what to do. I was dealing with my own problems. I wanted to help but didn't know how. But excuses cannot erase silence. A person who abandons you once will abandon you again. If a leader tolerates that behavior, he sends a message to everyone watching. Loyalty is optional. And once loyalty becomes optional, power becomes fragile. Behavior 2: cowardice in leadership. There is nothing more dangerous than a leader who fears his own authority. Not all cowardice looks like weakness. Sometimes it hides behind politeness, behind caution, behind endless discussions. But at its core, cowardice is simple. It is the refusal to act when action is required. A leader who hesitates spreads fear throughout the entire system. Imagine soldiers on a battlefield. The enemy approaches. Everyone looks at the commander. But instead of giving orders, the commander hesitates. He asks for more opinions, more meetings, more analysis. In that moment, something invisible breaks. Confidence. Followers begin to wonder. If he doesn't know what to do, why should we trust him? And when trust disappears, the system begins to fracture. People start protecting themselves, making their own decisions, preparing their own exit plans. Soon the organization is no longer moving together. It is moving apart. Machiavelli warned about this clearly. People may respect a ruthless leader, but they will never follow a hesitant one. Because leadership is not the art of certainty, it is the art of decision. A leader must act even when the outcome is unclear, not because he knows the future, but because hesitation destroys belief faster than mistakes ever could. Behavior 3: flattery disguised as loyalty. Enemies are rarely the most dangerous people around you. Enemies keep you alert. The real danger comes from flatterers, the people who always agree, the people who always praise, the people who never challenge your ideas. But first it feels good. Everyone likes approval. Everyone enjoys admiration. But flattery is not support. It is manipulation. Flatterers are not loyal to you. They are loyal to proximity to power. Their goal is simple. Stay close. Gain influence. Avoid conflict. They never warn you when you make mistakes. They never challenge bad decisions. They never risk upsetting you, because honesty could cost them access. So instead they feed your ego. And slowly something dangerous happens. You begin to believe them. Your judgment weakens. Your self-awareness disappears. You think you are surrounded by loyal allies, but in reality, you are surrounded by mirrors. and mirrors cannot warn you when danger approaches. True loyalty often sounds uncomfortable. A real ally will disagree, challenge you, even argue with you, because their priority is not your ego. Their priority is your survival. Flatterers do the opposite. They protect your feelings while quietly destroying your power. Behavior for public defiance power depends on perception. Not just strength, not just authority, but belief. People must believe the leader is in control. The moment that belief cracks, power begins to weaken. And sometimes all it takes is one public challenge. One person questioning your authority in front of others. One bold voice saying, "Why should we listen to him?" If that moment goes unanswered, something dangerous happens. A seed of doubt spreads through the crowd. If one person can challenge you without consequences, why can't others? Soon people start testing limits, ignoring orders, questioning decisions, breaking rules, not aggressively, but gradually, little by little, until authority dissolves. This is why Machiavelli warned leaders about public defiance. Private disagreement is healthy, but public challenges cannot go unanswered. Because leadership is not only about making decisions, it is about protecting the perception of control. Once people believe authority can be mocked, the collapse begins. Behavior 5A ambition without loyalty ambition can be powerful. It drives people to achieve, to grow, to push beyond limitations. But ambition without loyalty is dangerous. A person who is ambitious but loyal can become a valuable ally. A person who is ambitious without loyalty becomes a threat. These individuals are often intelligent, capable, charismatic. They perform well, they speak well, they impress everyone. But there is something missing: commitment. They are loyal only to themselves. They serve power only while it benefits them. They watch carefully, studying every mistake you make, every weakness you reveal. And when the opportunity appears, they rise, not as rebels, but as replacements. These people rarely attack openly. They wait patiently, until the moment when others begin to doubt you. Then they step forward as the better option, the solution, the new leader. And because they have been close to you, they know exactly where to strike. A wise leader understands this early. Talent without loyalty is not an asset, it is a ticking threat. Either bind ambitious people to your success, or never allow them to rise high enough to replace you. Because the most dangerous rival is the one you helped create. Final lesson: power rarely collapses because of enemies. It collapses because leaders ignore warning signs. They tolerate betrayal. They forgive disloyalty. They ignore public challenges. They surround themselves with praise. They trust ambition without loyalty. And every tolerated mistake becomes a new rule, a rule everyone else learns. Soon loyalty disappears, respect weakens, authority fades, and the leader wonders what went wrong. But the truth is simple. Collapse began the moment he refused to draw a line. Machiavelli did not teach cruelty, he taught clarity. A leader must see people as they are, not as he hopes they will be, because power cannot survive blindness. It survives only through awareness, and the strongest leaders understand something many people never accept. Kindness without boundaries invites betrayal. Authority without consequences invites rebellion. And tolerance of the wrong behavior invites collapse. So watch closely, study people carefully, and remember this rule above all others. Power is not protected by strength alone. It is protected by knowing exactly what must never be tolerated.